Thank you so much for listening to the Friends of Recovery podcast. My name is Kyle, and today I am here with a special guest, Barry.
Yeah, nice to see you, Carl.
Yeah. Welcome to the podcast. And so I know you a little bit, and I think you have a very interesting and unique story. And I'd love to just get that out there and see,
Okay.
Where do you want to start?
Well, I could start from probably as my earlier age. I'm 75 now.
Yep.
Probably going back to the 80s. I was college educated. I was in business with my brother for like a decade and a half. Very successful in the construction business. We owned a club in the city in Manhattan. Moved to Orlando in 1990. I started opening up dollar stores. Everything was great. During the 80s, I started using harder drugs. I was using cocaine.
Yep.
And then somebody introduced me to freebasing. And from there, I was off to the races. I was what you would call a functional addict. I went to work, conducted my business, but on a Friday night, it was like I was off to the races.
Yeah.
And then I needed a day or two to recover to go back to work on Monday. So I did that for a long time. In 1990, my wife and we had a little baby daughter, born in 89. We moved to Orlando. My brother and I went into the dollar store business. We had 2 stores, and from there we parted ways, and I continued on. And I had multiple locations of dollar stores. I was clean for 10 years.
Okay.
And then
And so how did you maintain that, or how did you
I think it was just, like they say, changing your environment. I was not interested in pursuing or looking for that drug anymore.
Yep.
And I was doing just very well. We had a beautiful home. My wife was a realtor. I have all these dollar stores. Life is good.
Yeah.
Life was great. And maybe just an occasional social drink, going out to a restaurant with friends or to their house. But I was just maintaining my business. And then one particular day, a young lady walked into my store, and I was selling a particular product. I didn't know what it was used for. It happened to be those little artificial roses in a glass stem.
Yep.
And I said to her, I said, what do you, because she said to me, wow, I didn't know you sold those. And I said, what are those? Because my first wife would say, Barry, your stores are like sensory overload. You have too much merchandise.
Yeah.
It's like people get overwhelmed. So I said, what are you pointing to and what are you asking about? She says, oh, those little pretty roses. I said, what do you use them for? She says, well, I smoke crack. Because no one's going to come into your store and say, I smoke crack. Do you have those, those stems? Yeah. So I said, oh, I used to freebase cocaine. Now I'm clean for 10 years at that point.
Yeah.
And she said, well, you want to get high with me? So unfortunately, like I say through, I go to these different meetings for addiction recovery in AA, and I said, sure, because it was always...
And that was all it took.
It's all it took, and for me, it was all connected. It was always, with the drugs and women, and like they say, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So I was off to the races. She called her dealer. He came. I'm clean now 10 years, and I made a 3-second decision, which changed my life for the worst. I think I was the devil that walked into my store. Yep. And, I got extremely high. My phone rang. It was my first wife saying, Barry, I'm in the neighborhood. Now, the neighborhood, I live 25 miles from this particular store I was in that day. I would go to different stores, different locations to make sure, my sales help were doing what they had to. The stores looked good. The customers were happy. So my phone rings. I picked up the landline. She says, I'll be there in 5 minutes. So of course, I panic. The girl has to leave. I grab a bottle of generic NyQuil to think that I'm going to calm down a little bit. I drank the whole bottle. Yep. I'm trying to look normal. I'm not. Yeah. I have lockjaw. I'm in this big power center with all these national chain stores. And she pulls up and she knew right away. She says, I don't even want to curse on the radio, on the podcast, but she was not happy. Yeah. That was the end of that. Yep. So now I have this drug dealer's phone number she programmed into my phone, and I'm off to the races after 10 years of being clean. Yeah. So I started neglecting my stores. My stores started crumbling. And that marriage was over.
Yeah.
probably for the next 9 months or so, my ex-wife, she became my ex-wife. She gave me a large, substantial sum of money just to move out and not sell the house. And I used all that money up in 9 months. Anyway, I came up to Oneonta. I found another job. I worked for about 9 years managing a store until I was accused of a few things by my ex-boss. Unfortunately, I went away to prison. I was sentenced to 15 years. I was arrested in 2013. I spent like 18 months, 19 months in the county jail. I went to Elmira Reception, which is state prison reception, in 2015. And I was released I did max time. I was released in April 28th, 2026. Now, I had the parole back to Oneonta, and I remember taking the Trailways bus. Oneonta changed in those 13 years where the OPT, which is the Oneonta Public Transportation, moved from a new facility.
Yeah.
I got off the bus. I thought I was in the Twilight Zone. I didn't know where I was, carrying my net bag with all my prison possessions.
So where did you go?
I'm at the bus station. Somebody pointed me in the direction of Main Street.
Yeah.
I had an address from one of my release papers, said I had to go see my parole officer at 242 Main Street.
Yep.
So as I'm walking and I'm like overwhelmed already, like a lost puppy, I see 242 Main. So I ran in there quickly to see him, touch base. And he was more panicked that I didn't go to DSS, which is the Department of Social Services I need an emergency housing shelter because I can't be on the street.
Yeah.
I'm on parole. So he called a taxi for me. I went down there to DSS just to get a voucher for the night. They put me in an atrocious motel one night. I went back the next day. I said, that was the end of that. I'm not going back there. Send me back to prison if I have to stay there. My prison cell was actually better. So I took a taxi to Walmart. I bought a cell phone. The cashier immediately knew, just by looking at my face, I was so overwhelmed just being in Walmart around people. She says, you just got out of prison, didn't you? And I said, yeah, I did. She says, yeah, I had a lot of friends that did prison time. I could see it in your eyes. You were just like, you were lost.
Yeah.
So the next morning when I got on the bus to go back to DSS from Oneonta to Cooperstown, there was a young man on the bus, and he's listening to my story, and he says, you need to go in and see Fordue on Elm Street. And I said, what is Fordue? And they said, it's Friends of Recovery. And the next day after I went to DSS, I came into to Fordue, and I was received very warmly. People, they're all, recovering from different addictions. So they were apathetic to, my lot. It was just, I felt at home.
Yeah.
And I've was volunteering. Since I do volunteer. Anytime they ask me for anything, I do. I was still considered homeless. They put me in a better place to live, but I was still, every day I'd come into Oneonta, pounding on doors, calling realtors, asking anybody for a room, an apartment, anything bigger than a broom closet. I wanted to not live in this motel.
Yeah.
I ended up got through in a program, just kept talking to people and asking. And the one person I asked, it was the right person. I could feel the warmth on the phone speaking to her. And she got me into this program. There was a waiting list, and she thought I'd be the right fit. I got an apartment. It's income-based. I'm doing very well. I got a resume made, making contacts for a job, and things are good now. Things are looking up.
Yeah.
But being in prison for that long, it took a toll, not just on me, but on my family. There's collateral damage. When you go to prison, it's not good. I did very well because I always knew how to respect people. I'm an old school type of guy. Like I said, I'm 75 now. I went to prison when I was 62, which is, you're supposed to be home playing with your grandkids, not going to prison at that age. So, but I did okay. I didn't have any problems with, the incarcerated people. We don't call each other inmates anymore. They stopped doing that.
Yeah.
So we're the incarcerated.
Yep.
I was okay with, the COs, the correction officers, never gave anybody, I never wanted to make my bid any harder
Yes.
than it was.
Yeah.
Being away from your family. So I have two daughters. Unfortunately, right now, neither one of them talks to me. Everyone says, in time, maybe that will change. But I know in prison, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. What do you do now to maintain your recovery, like on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, and I attend these like all recovery meetings where people have addictions for everything, from eating, drugs, alcohol. Mine was drugs. I think about the past and about how much what I thought was enjoyable. It was enjoyable until it wasn't anymore.
Yeah.
That's the way I say it. I did a lot of damage to my family. I thought I was hiding my addiction. I mean, my first wife absolutely knew, but I was just maintaining myself. But it just doesn't, even no matter how much money you make. And I also justified my addiction with a reward for being successful. That's as addicts, we can justify anything.
Yeah.
But I never had to, look for cans to return to try to get high or, I didn't do that. I had a lot of money and I wasted a lot of money.
Yeah.
Spent a lot of money on good things, traveling Europe and, we had a beautiful home and cars and boats and we did all that. But it was always, like I said, I thought it was enjoyable till it wasn't.
Yeah.
So each day I do think about, I thank God when I wake up in the morning that I'm just awake. And I think about the damage that I created through addiction, through incarceration. And now my family is here at Fordu. I just love everybody that works here, from the peers, from the coordinators to the managers. It's just a great place to be.
And so what are your plans looking forward?
Well, I'm looking for work. Someday I would hope to have a significant other, whether I go to these group meetings, and the one woman that runs ARS, which is Addiction Recovery Services, I just go to, not because I need to, because it just, she wanted me to be there through the groups so I can actually be an advocate, a peer for these other people that are struggling, that are only clean 2 months, 3 months. They went back to prison. So I'm more of an inspiration, even though I got my own story and my own struggle. But like I said, I'm clean also now 13 plus years.
Yeah.
My time in prison, I could have chose to continue to use drugs and to drink hooch that they make, or I can reflect on, like I said, all the damage I caused my family and myself. And I chose to do good things while I was in prison. It was time to reflect on just being a positive person. I immediately, when I was at Wendy, when I heard they were hiring or looking for hospice aides, working in the hospital, I was never comfortable around hospital settings with sights or smells. It wasn't something for me. But they would say, listen, if you do this 2-year program, you could get 6 months off your bid. So I immediately said, 6 months, I would do this for 6 hours, see if I could go home sooner. So I applied, and through a vetting process, there were 40 guys that applied at Wendy. This was 2015. 10 of us made the final cut. It was like being in front of the Inquisition. I had the Deacon Maloney, who brought the program from, it was mirrored from Angola State Prison in Louisiana. They had the first hospice program in the country. So when they brought that to Wendy, this was a program that hopefully it was going to work for the state of New York. So there was the coordinator, Mrs. Graybrick, and then they brought in Hospice of Buffalo, and an oncology nurse, and a doctor, and the head of security for Wendy. So they were all asking me questions. So I made it through that, and I went through the schooling, and I became a hospice aide, and I took care of during my 4.5 years until I drafted out to Eastern Correctional, I took care of 25 men that I would log on to. Yeah, and the last couple passed away on my shift.
Oh,
And it was rough. It was rough. You watch these men. Not all of them are old. You think about your own mortality.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was, 62 at the time, 63, 64. I'm like 65. I watch these men. Some of them are 30 years old, dying of cancer.
Yeah.
So
Must have been incredibly hard.
it was incredibly hard, but I did it. I was very good at what I did. I have a compassionate side to me. I was good with the nurses. I advocated for the dying men. You'd read to them if they wanted the Bible, change the TV, help them to the toilet, or if they were able to, you take them to the day room and they could, just socialize for 10 minutes, or you'd make their bed, get clean linens. So I did that until I would draft it out. But and I was glad I did that. And I wanted to show my daughters who never made contact with me, but I didn't want to just be a mess hall worker, which I did do also for the 11 years in state prison.
Yeah.
But I wanted to show that I had another side to me, and so I took care of these men, and I'm grateful that I did that.
Yeah.
It just showed another side of me. So I've been blessed. I'm happy to be home, out, and like I'm at Fort Dew. I come here. I have unfortunately my license expired while I was in prison.
Yeah.
So that's another whole story for another podcast, another day. But my license got suspended while I was in prison in 25. My second ex-wife at the time never took my name off her registration, and she let her insurance lapse. They didn't turn the plates in.
Yeah.
My license gets suspended in
While
25.
you're incarcerated.
While I'm incarcerated.
Yeah.
I didn't have a license,
Yeah.
but it was suspended. So when I finally got out and checked the DMV, and they're telling me that for insurance lapse, I said, that's impossible. I was in prison until April 28th, 26. So that I went down and I had to go to the police agency and file a missing plate, stolen plate report. So when I went back to the DMV in Cooperstown, I submitted that police report. So my suspension did not start from 2025. It started from the day I turned that report in.
Yeah.
So that report now prints out from Albany saying that now your license is now of that date suspended for 538 days. Well, that's like a year and a half.
Yeah.
So I applied for a great job here in the county as a rapid housing coordinator. And I had my first interview was over the phone for a half hour, and she was very impressed with my resume and, my cover letter and all that, until she heard I didn't have a license.
Yeah.
And she says, I'm sorry, but you're going to need a driver's license. So I was a little taken back, but I have a lot of other possibilities.
Yeah.
So I'm not the one to just sit back and I'll be working. I worked my whole life, so I'll continue to find a job, and I will work, and life's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate
If you had one piece of advice to give to somebody who's early in recovery, what would it be?
Well, I would say to you, take one day at a time. Change your friends if you can, your location, your phone numbers. There are going to be triggers that are going to probably lead you in the wrong path. And if you can work. Just stay busy. And all I could say is good luck to you. And I would say, as far as prison, there's a saying about think before you react, because there are consequences in life, whatever we do.
Yeah.
And I would say good luck to everyone.
Yeah. Excellent.